Hey y'all. I know I promised the episode of co-creating to review this book I've been reading, The Mystic Path of The Mystic Path to Cosmic Power by Vernon Howard. And so here we are. I'm late as hell with it. It was supposed to be for the month of October, and here we are 7 days into November. But whatever, better late than never. Don't get me wrong, man. I'm excited to review the book. I just had a lot going on in October. So we are definitely going to talk about this awesome book. So if you have not read it, I do suggest that you check it out, depending on your interests, of course. But first, let me just say, congratulations to the first not only woman vice president, but black woman vice president of these here United States, Miss Kamala Harris. Madam Vice President, honey, we done went from mammy to madam out here in these streets. So, as a black woman, I have to say that I am extremely excited about that and just proud to be dripped in melanin at this point, because we're doing big things, and I know it's a lot of work to be done. So while we celebrate this victory, I hope it's the momentum, it builds the momentum that we need to get a lot of things done and changed, because oh boy, who will remain nameless, we don't say his name in my house, in my house, out my house. Now I do live in Mississippi, where I'm sure they say it around. My neighbors got Confederate flags and the whole nine, so I'm pretty sure they all about that life, but not over here at my address. And so there's a lot of work to be done to undo what he's done, but nevertheless, today we just should be ecstatic about the victory that has been won today. So I made some notes about this book, and so we're gonna go over that, and then after that I pull some oracle cards from the healing mantra deck, because like I said, even though we've had this victory, there's a lot of healing to be done, there's a lot of work to be done, and that's one thing that the book, The Mystic Path to Cosmic Power, touches on, which is our own personal healing journey. So I can give you guys a little backstory on the book. When I first started to realize that something was going on with me. I've always been a spiritual person, but I grew up in the Baptist religion, and so to some degree I was more religious than I was spiritual, but some of those things didn't resonate with me. It was just tradition. It was what I was raised to believe and raised on as a Christian, and so that's what I went with. But the older I got and the more life started to kick my ass, I started to gravitate toward what I resonate with, opposed to what I've been taught and what's common in my community and in my family, and so on and so forth. So I started to see like synchronicities, numbers, having really, really vivid dreams, and I've always remembered my dreams since I was a child, and I didn't even know that that wasn't common. I didn't know that people don't remember their dreams every night, or don't dream every night. I have a dream every night, most nights, I'll say that, and I remember them. If ever when I have a dream, I remember them, and they're quite vivid, and I didn't know that that wasn't common until I started talking to people, and I realized, oh, okay, so it's something like, there's something significant about that. And so with all the experiences that I was having with feathers in random places and people prophesying to me different things and at random times, I went and got a tarot card reading, because that's not common in my community. I don't know nothing about those sorts of things at that point. And I was thinking the only person who could probably give me some insight as to what's going on is a tarot reading. I didn't really go for somebody to tell me my future or something like that. I just want to understand what was going on in my present. So when I went to get the reading and talk to the reader or whatever the case, she confirmed that I was experiencing a spiritual awakening. And so I asked her to suggest some things for me, like were there any crystals I needed to work with, or some practice I needed to adopt, or books I needed to read that could better help me understand and navigate this process or this journey. And one of the 3 books that she suggested to me was The Mystic Path to Cosmic Power. And because I was reading something at the time already, it took me a minute before I got into the book, and then when I started reading it, some of the stuff was like going over my head just because I had not yet had enough experience to fully understand some of the things that the book talks about. But it is a really simple read. It wasn't until I picked it up a second time and started reading it after I had started to explore some other things in terms of my spiritual journey that everything just started to make so much sense to me. So that may not be the experience for everybody, but that was kind of how it unfolded for me in terms of reading this book. So that's just a little backstory on the book, and I'm just gonna go over a few points that I thought were significant and helpful. And I basically recommend the book to anybody who's on a journey to identifying their true self, because that's one of the things that the book really expounds on. We have our true self, and then we have our false self. And our false self is basically that persona that we've come to manifest as a result of all the things that society has taught us, and the way that we were raised, and just all of the things that we didn't come to learn and study on our own and adapt to, opposed to what we've been taught because it's societally acceptable, or the things that we hide behind. So your true self is more so the person you were born to be, the person you were born as, and before you were programmed to believe this, that, and the third. And I just want to make it clear, when I say believe this, that, and the third, I am not talking about Christianity. I believe in Jesus Christ. I don't agree with a lot of what we've been taught about Christianity, and so I am doing my own study on the history of it, and paying close attention to what resonates to me, what makes sense to me, what doesn't, what is a contradiction, and what isn't, what has been my experience. But I could not, within good faith or conscience, sit here and say that I don't believe in Jesus Christ or that I'm against Christianity, when I know that before I knew any of what I've learned now, I could call on the name of Jesus and the comfort and healing that would come, that would manifest for me. So I wouldn't dishonor that in any way. But what I mean by like things that we've been taught is just that we should work our fingers to the bone in order to have the materialistic things and reach the materialistic goals, the superficial goals that society has set for us, or how marriage should be, how we should raise our children, how we should show up in the world on a day-to-day basis. Before we were taught those things, we were born our true self. We were born with the identity that we signed up for when we decided to reincarnate into this world. And so for all of us, I mean, you don't even really know who that person is, because there's so much that has been poured into you to cover that up so that you can, so quote unquote, behave the way society and the rest of the world does. So this book really talks about getting back to that individual, getting to know your true self, showing up in the world as your true self, opposed to your false self, and catering to the superficial pleasures that we find in being our false self. Lord, is that a mosquito? Y'all gonna see me in this whole video if it's a mosquito out here. I don't do mosquitoes, honey. So one of the things that I liked about the book is that it's a fairly easy read in terms of vernacular. So there are 15 medium chapters. They're not that long, not that short. Words are pretty big. If you wear glasses, you probably don't even need them. and maybe I just got like a large print version, I'm not sure, but it wasn't a hard or strenuous read at all. I'm just a slow reader, especially if it's a book where the content requires me to think and reflect a little bit. So I'll like journal on it and be on the same chapter for weeks, because I'm really reflecting and taking in the content. And each of the chapters at the end has like a key point summary, like bulletin points of the most important points in the chapter. So I thought that was dope, because that gives you a chance to reflect on the key points once you finish each chapter. And if there was a point that you didn't quite get while reading it, you would more than likely get it by the time you finish that particular chapter. The book also encourages us to be rooted in what fulfills us on a soul level, and not get caught up in the rat race. Don't get caught up in the matrix. And like I said, what society tells us is the idea of success, and really give some thought to what success is for you. For some of us, success is building a family, having security, whatever that looks like. Success for many of us is making it through each day and not being depressed, or having a higher spirit. Success for some of us is contributing to humanity in a way that uplifts society, or you dedicate yourself to some cause or whatever, but not necessarily having a Birkin bag or a Gucci bag, or being married even though y'all not happy, or all these things society tells us is success. Having an executive suite, and 1,000 letters behind your name, and 1,000 degrees with 1,000 thousands of dollars in student loan debt. Society tells us that that's success. So the book encourages us to really reflect on what success looks like for us, and make sure that it's fulfilling on a soul level. I love, love, love how this book talks about love relationships, and it kind of points out how, like, when you love somebody, you don't truly loving somebody is like you don't want something from them. You just love that person. Like, you just have genuine love, care, and honor for that person, and you don't want anything from them. It's not, your love for them is not based on what you want or can get from them, because once you establish that there's something you want from that person, that love is no longer unconditional. That love is based on condition. So I love that point, because so many times when we love somebody and we get into these love relationships, be they love relationships like romantic relationships or friendships, we put all these stipulations, and we have these laundry lists of things that they better do, and they bet not do, or you're not gonna love them no more. And that's not to say that you don't have boundaries, because you absolutely have boundaries, and your boundaries are for your well-being and based on what you value. But at the same time, you don't, quote unquote, like, put the shackles on people because you love them. You allow people to be themselves and do what it is they want to do, because ultimately that's going to show you whether or not you all are in alignment, and show you what it is that they really want to do. You, at the end of the day, most of the relationship problems come from trying to make somebody do or be something that they're not. When it's truly meant to be, you guys are gonna be in alignment, and those types of things are not gonna really be an issue. So I'm not saying like I'm for open relationships or anything like that. I wholeheartedly believe in the institution of marriage, and I believe in monogamy, but I also believe that you can't make nobody do nothing. And so the moment someone decides that they want to do something different, you let them, and you make the best decision for yourself. And this book really speaks on that, and how that is what true love is, and not this the way that we are taught, that we become second parents or prison guards to our mates or to our friends, because they don't show up in the relationship the way that we want or require them to. We all have choices. You have the right to choose whether or not you're going to deal with, or put up with what somebody brings to the table, but to try to make them and put what do they call it? Give them ultimatums. It's not love. I think it was Iyanla that said, you know, a lot of times what we do is we try to put these stipulations on people that they don't even have the capacity to fulfill, and that's not love. If you know someone does not have the capacity, that's self-serving, for you to expect different of them than what they have the capacity to provide. So the book kind of touches on all of that. And another thing about in the book that I really love was this emphasis on how we put too much, we give our mind too much control over us instead of controlling our mind, meaning like we have far more control over our thoughts than we give ourselves credit for. And that once we come to understand that, we're able to make better decisions. We're better able to control our emotions and our thoughts, and we're able to just show up differently when we acknowledge and hold ourselves accountable for our thoughts. Another point that I love is the emphasis on oneness, and how when we come to understand as we are on our journey that we're all a lot more alike than we are different. And when we realize that, we have more compassion for one another, and realize that we really are one, that we really at the core of things all want the same things out of life: love, respect, acceptance. And so I thought that was dope. There's a whole bunch of little points, not little points, big points that I loved about this book. Otherwise, I would not be spending my time even trying to encourage you guys to read it and giving you a summary of it. And I was going to read one of the passages from the book. It's in chapter 10, page 152, and it refers to happiness. And I was just about to tell y'all that I wasn't gonna do it, but the Spirit said do it, so I'm gonna be obedient and read it right quick. I hope that my phone don't cut off. So it says, we must see what happiness is not. It is not exterior activity that is merely a distraction from inner unhappiness. What then is happiness? The answer is not complex. Happiness is simply a state of inner freedom. Freedom from what? With a bit of self-insight, every individual can answer that question for himself. It is freedom from the secret angers and anxieties we tell no one about. It's freedom from fear of being unappreciated and ignored, from muddled thinking that drives us to compulsive actions and later to regrets. It is freedom from painful cravings that deceive us into thinking that our attainment of this person or of that circumstance will make everything right. Happiness is liberty from everything that makes us unhappy. And that was like so dope to me, because it really points out how our happiness is internal and not external. But if you are so distracted and so busy and so like invested in trying to make everybody else happy, you won't know what makes you happy. You won't know what internally is that joy that this world didn't give and this world can't take away. So I think that's like super important. One of the most key points of the book is to identify what makes you happy on a soul level, opposed to the superficial external things that make you happy. Having someone, obtaining something, some kind of car, some kind of purse, some 3-story house, 2-story house, whatever the case may be, whatever superficial thing, because those types of happiness are just temporary pleasures. Those are not things that will fulfill or sustain you. And it's pretty much time out for those type of things. It's pretty much time out for investing so much into those temporary pleasures and not what sustains you and makes you happy. Because even like with the coronavirus pandemic, a lot of those temporary pleasures were not things that could fulfill us during this time where we had to like beat ourselves and be at home, and we couldn't really get out and go be entertained and run from our problems or our thoughts the way we could at first. So it was really calling us, and going forward is really calling us to identify what truly makes us happy, so that we can better show up in the world as the individual that we were created to be. So I hope that I've shared something that would spark your interest